listen carefully, because the pennies in your pocket right now could secretly be worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most people ignore old coins, but collectors are paying insane money for rare wheat pennies, and you might have one without even knowing it. Number 1, the 1943 copper wheat penny. This coin was never supposed to exist. During World War II, pennies were made from steel, but a few copper ones were accidentally struck. Today, one of these sold for over $1 million. Yes, the single penny. Number 2, the 1944 steel wheat penny. This is the opposite mistake. In 1944, pennies were supposed to be copper again, but a few steel coins slipped through. These are extremely rare and can sell for over $100,000. Number 3, the 1909 SVB wheat penny. This was the very first Lincoln penny ever made, and the designer's initials VDB made it controversial. Only a small number were produced, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever. Number 4, the 1914 DeWheat penny. It might look normal, but this coin is very rare in high grades. Even worn versions can sell for thousands. Number 5, the 1922 No DeWheat penny. A minting error removed the mint mark, creating one of the most famous error coins in history. So, before you spend your change, check your pennies carefully, because that one small coin could change a life. Follow for more rare coin secrets, and don't forget to check your pocket right now. Stop. Don't skip this, because what I'm about to show you, most people will never notice. That old 1919 wheat penny sitting in your collection might not be just a coin. It might be something else. Something people spend without realizing what they just lost. And once you understand this, you will never look at your coins the same way again. Because here's the truth. Some of the most valuable coins look completely normal. And that's exactly why they're dangerous. They hide in plain sight, and people throw them away every single day. So before you ignore this, look at your 1919 penny. Hold it, because one small detail could change everything. Now think about this. This coin is over 100 years old. It has passed through hands, through pockets, through history, wars, crisis, generations, and somehow it survived. But survival doesn't make it valuable. What makes it valuable is what most people never see. Let me explain. Millions of 1919 wheat pennies were made, millions were used, worn down, forgotten. So today most of them are common, but not all of them, because some are different, and those are the ones collectors are hunting for. Now here's where it starts, and you need to pay attention, because this is where most people fail. They look at a coin for 1 second, and they decide it's worthless. But valuable coins don't reveal themselves that easily. You have to look closer, much closer. Start with the mint mark. Look under the date. If there's no mint mark, it came from Philadelphia. If you see a D, that's Denver. If you see an S, that's San Francisco. And here's what most people don't understand. Some mint marks are harder to find than others, which means they matter. But don't stop there, because that's exactly where people lose. Now tilt the coin under the light. Look at the surface. Does it glow? Or is it dull? Because that glow, that soft shine, is called luster. And coins that still have it are rare, because time destroys it. Hands destroy it. Circulation destroys it. So, if your coin still shines, that's your first warning. This might not be normal. Now, look at the color. And this is where things get serious. Most old pennies turn brown, dark, flat. But if your 1919 penny still has traces of red, that's not normal. That means it was protected, hidden, untouched. And collectors notice that, because color means survival, and survival means rarity. Now, listen carefully, because this is where everything changes. Errors, mistakes, flaws. Because the coins people think are damaged are sometimes the most valuable, and most people never realize it. Let's start with something small, but powerful. Doubling. Look at the letters. Look at the date. Do they look sharp? Or do they look slightly duplicated? Almost like a shadow? That's not your eyes. That's called a double die. And if you see that, stop, because that's not normal. That's a mistake, a mint mistake. And mint mistakes are what collectors chase. Now, here's something even more dangerous. Off-center strikes. This is when the coin was struck incorrectly. So part of the design is missing. At first, it looks like damage, like something is wrong. But that's the trap, because what looks wrong can be extremely right. The more off-center it is, the more valuable it can become. Now, imagine holding a coin that looks incomplete and realizing that incompleteness is exactly what makes it valuable. Now let's go deeper, because this is where almost everyone fails. Clip planchets, a piece missing from the edge, like something took a bite out of the coin. Most people would ignore it, but collectors, they look closer, because that's not damage. That's how it was made, and that changes everything. Now look for lines, raised lines, across the surface, not scratches, something else. Those are die cracks, created during minting, permanent, unique, and no two are exactly the same, which means your coin could be one of a kind. Now stop for a second and think, how many coins have you already ignored? How many have you spent without checking? How many rare coins passed through your hands and disappeared forever? Because that's what happens. Every day, people lose value without even knowing it. And the worst part, they never find out. But you're different now, because now you know what to look for. Now imagine this moment. You're going through your coins. You find a 1919 wheat penny. Old, worn, easy to ignore. But something tells you, look again. So you do. And suddenly, you notice something. A detail, a shadow, a shine, something that doesn't feel normal. And in that moment, everything changes, because now, it's not just a coin, it's a possibility. Now, here's the part most people never hear. The most valuable coins are not the ones everyone talks about, they're the ones nobody notices, the quiet ones, the hidden ones, the ones sitting in jars, waiting. And the only difference between someone who finds them and someone who doesn't is attention. So don't rush. Slow down. Check everything. Because the smallest detail can be the biggest discovery. And if you've watched this far, then you already understand something most people don't. Value is hidden. Not obvious. Not loud. Hidden. So, before you spend your next penny, pause. Look at it. Really look at it. Because you might be holding something rare. Something valuable. Something that almost slipped away. And if you keep looking, keep checking, keep paying attention, you won't just find coins. You'll find opportunities, and the next one might already be in your pocket. Listen carefully, because this might sound crazy, but a small, old penny from 1926 could be hiding serious money, and most people never notice it. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is holding a coin worth far more than 1 cent, and they have no idea. And here's the scary part. You could be one of them. Before you skip, make sure you watch until the end, because one tiny detail on a 1926 wheat penny could completely change its value, and almost nobody checks for it. The 1926 wheat penny is one of those coins that looks completely ordinary. Brown color, 2 wheat stalks on the back, Abraham Lincoln on the front. Nothing special, at least that's what most people think. But hidden inside some of these coins are rare features that collectors are willing to pay real money for. And these coins are not locked in museums. They still show up in old jars, piggy banks, inherited collections, even random boxes in your house. Now here's where it gets interesting. Not all 1926 pennies are the same. Some are made in different mints, and that small letter below the date can completely change the story of your coin. But even more important than the mint mark is the condition, because a coin that looks worn out, scratched, or faded is very different from one that still has sharp details. Collectors look closely at Lincoln's face, the lines in his hair, the sharpness of the wheat stalks. Even the smallest details matter. And here's something most people don't realize. 2 coins from the same year, the same design, can have completely different values just because of how well they were preserved. Now imagine this. You find a 1926 penny in your home. At first, it looks old, maybe dirty. You almost ignore it. But then you clean it up slightly, and suddenly you notice the details are still strong. The lettering is clear. The wheat lines are sharp. That's the moment everything changes. Because collectors don't just want old coins. They want well-preserved coins. And that's where the real money begins. But wait, it gets even more interesting. Some 1926 wheat pennies were struck with small minting mistakes. And these mistakes are where things get serious. We're talking about coins where letters look slightly doubled, or where the strike wasn't perfect, or tiny irregularities that most people would never notice. But collectors? They hunt for these details, because mint errors are rare by nature. They weren't supposed to happen. And when they do, they create something unique. Something collectible. Something valuable. Now, here's the part that shocks most people. Many of these valuable coins were never recognized. They were spent like normal money, dropped into change jars, forgotten for decades. And that means some of them are still out there, waiting to be discovered. Right now, someone could have one and not even know it. Maybe in an old drawer. Maybe in a family collection. Maybe even in your house. And that's why you should never ignore an old penny, especially one from 1926. Because the difference between a common coin and a valuable one can be just one tiny detail. A small mint mark, a sharper strike, a cleaner surface, or a rare error. Now think about this. How many coins have passed through your hands over the years? Hundreds? Thousands? And how many did you actually check carefully? Almost none. That's exactly why valuable coins slip through unnoticed. People assume they're all the same. They're not. And that's the opportunity. If you start paying attention, you immediately have an advantage over almost everyone else. Because most people never look twice. They spend first and think later. But collectors? They look closely. They take their time. They search for details others miss. And sometimes, that's all it takes to find something valuable. Now, here's something you should do right after this video. Go check your old coins. Look for wheat pennies. Check the dates. And if you see 1926, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the condition. Look for anything unusual. Because you never know. That small coin could be worth much more than you expect. And the best part? You don't need to be an expert to start. All you need is curiosity and a little attention to detail. Because that's how discoveries happen. Not by luck, but by noticing what others overlook. And remember, some of the most valuable coins ever found were discovered by ordinary people. Not professionals, not dealers, just someone who decided to look carefully. So before you move on, think about this. What if the next coin you check is the one? What if that old penny sitting somewhere in your home is actually worth something, and you've been ignoring it this whole time? That's why it's always worth checking. Because the moment you stop paying attention is the moment you might miss something valuable. So don't make that mistake. Look closely. Check your coins. And never assume a penny is just a penny. Because sometimes it's much more than that. Stop. Don't skip this. Because the coin you're about to hear about looks completely ordinary, but it has surprised collectors again and again. A simple penny from 1918. Most people would spend it without thinking twice. But what if I told you that some of these coins are quietly worth far more than 1 cent, and they've been hiding in plain sight for over a century? Right now, there are still people holding this coin, not realizing what they have. And the reason is simple. It doesn't look rare. It doesn't look special. It looks like every other old penny. But that's exactly why it gets ignored. And that's where the opportunity begins. Because the 1918 wheat penny is one of those coins that can easily slip past unnoticed, unless you know exactly what to look for. So, before you skip, stay with me, because later in this video, I'm going to show you the small details that can completely change how valuable your coin might be. And once you know them, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. The 1918 wheat penny was made during a time when coins were part of everyday life. People used them constantly. They passed through countless hands. They were spent, saved, lost, and forgotten. And over time, most of them became worn down, scratched, faded, almost unrecognizable. But not all of them. Some survived, and those are the ones collectors care about, because when a coin survives in better condition than expected, it becomes something special. Now, here's the part most people miss. Condition is everything. Two coins from the exact same year, the exact same design, can be completely different in value. One might look dull and worn. The other might still have sharp details, clear lines, strong lettering. And that difference is what collectors pay attention to. They look closely at Lincoln's face, the fine lines in his hair, the sharpness of the wheat stalks on the back. Even the smallest detail can make a difference. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Not all 1918 wheat pennies are the same. Some were made in different mints. And that tiny mint mark under the date can change everything. Most people never check it. They don't even know it's there. But collectors always look, because that small letter tells a story, where the coin was made, how many were produced, and sometimes how rare it might be today. Now imagine this. You find a 1918 penny in your house. At first, it just looks old. Nothing special. But then you take a closer look. You notice the details are still strong. The surface isn't heavily worn. The wheat lines are still visible. That's when the question changes. It's no longer just an old coin. It becomes something worth checking. And that moment is where most people either miss the opportunity or discover something valuable. Because here's the truth. Valuable coins are often overlooked. Not because they're hidden, but because people don't know what to look for. They assume all old coins are the same. They're not. And that's exactly why discoveries still happen today. Now, let's take this one step further. Some 1918 wheat pennies have small minting irregularities, tiny details that happen during production. And these are the kinds of things collectors pay serious attention to. We're talking about slight doubling in the letters, unusual marks, small differences in the strike, things that most people would ignore. But collectors don't ignore them, because those differences can make a coin unique. And uniqueness is what drives value. Now think about how many pennies have passed through your hands over the years. Hundreds, maybe thousands. How many did you actually check carefully? Probably none. And that's exactly why valuable coins keep getting missed. People move too fast. They don't stop and look. But the moment you slow down and start paying attention, you're already ahead of most people. Because now you're looking for details. Now you're aware. And awareness is where discoveries begin. Now here's something you should do. After this, go find your old coins. Look for wheat pennies. And if you see a 1918, don't just glance at it. Examine it. Look at the condition. Check for details. See if anything stands out. Because sometimes the difference between a common coin and a valuable one is just one small detail. One detail that most people would never notice. And that's why these coins are so interesting. Because they reward attention. They reward patience. They reward curiosity. And those are things anyone can have. You don't need expensive tools. You don't need years of experience. You just need to look carefully. Because the moment you start doing that, everything changes. You stop seeing coins as just money. You start seeing them as objects with history, with detail, with potential, and sometimes with hidden value. Now here's something that might surprise you. Some of the most valuable coins ever discovered were found by ordinary people. Not experts, not professionals, just someone who decided to look a little closer. And that's what makes this so powerful. Because it means anyone can do it, including you. So before you move on, think about this. What if there's a coin sitting somewhere in your home right now that you've never really looked at? What if it's been there for years and you just assumed it was nothing special? And what if you're wrong? That's why it's always worth checking. Because the cost of checking is nothing, but the potential could be much more. So don't ignore your coins. Don't rush past them. Take a moment. Look closely. Because sometimes the smallest, most ordinary-looking penny can turn out to be something far more interesting than you ever expected. And once you start checking, you might never stop. Stop. Don't skip this, because what you're about to hear could change how you look at pennies forever. That 1951 Wheat penny you may have lying around, it's not just a coin. Most people spend these every single day without realizing their true value. And here's the thing, people throw away potential money all the time. Every day. Coins that could be worth much more than their face value. And you could be holding one right now. Before you scroll away, pay attention. Because one small detail on a 1951 penny can completely change everything. The 1951 Wheat penny was minted in Denver. That tiny D under the date tells a story. But that's just the beginning. Millions of these coins were produced, but the truth is, not all of them survived in good condition. Most were used, passed through countless hands, scratched, worn, and forgotten. But some pennies survived almost untouched, and those are the ones collectors hunt for. Condition matters more than you realize. A sharp, clear 1951 penny with visible lines in Lincoln's hair, strong lettering, and crisp wheat stalks can be worth far more than a worn, dull coin. Now, here's something most people completely miss. Errors, mistakes made during minting. Some 1951 pennies have double die errors, letters or numbers that appear slightly duplicated, almost invisible to an untrained eye. But collectors notice, and they pay attention. Then there are off-center strikes, coins where the design isn't perfectly aligned. At first glance, it looks damaged, but that flaw can turn an ordinary penny into something rare and valuable. And don't forget about planchet issues, small irregularities in the coin's metal, clipped edges, strange textures, slight weight differences. These subtle details separate common pennies from ones collectors fight over. Think about this. How many pennies have passed through your hands in the last decade? Hundreds? Thousands? And how many did you actually examine closely? Almost none, right? That's exactly why valuable coins keep appearing unexpectedly. Imagine holding a 1951 Wheat penny. It looks normal. You almost ignore it. But then you notice something. A shine that didn't fade, lines that are still sharp, letters that don't match any coin you've seen before. Suddenly, it's no longer just a penny. Now here's the truth. Some of the most valuable coins were discovered by ordinary people. People who simply took a second look, not professionals, not experts, just someone paying attention. This coin might be in a jar, a drawer, an old collection, even a pocket. And most people would overlook it. But you now know the signs: shine, color, sharp details, small errors. That knowledge gives you an advantage. And that's why you should check every 1951 penny you find. Don't assume it's worthless. Look at the mint mark, check the condition, examine the details. A small difference, a tiny mint error, a preserved surface, even a subtle doubling can be the difference between a penny and a collectible worth real money. Now imagine finding that rare coin, the one that others overlooked for decades. That's the power of paying attention. Because once you start examining pennies carefully, you won't stop seeing potential value everywhere. And here's the final warning. Never clean your coins, never polish them. Clean coins lose their value instantly. Collectors want originality, not shine forced by chemicals. So, before you spend your next penny, pause, look at it, check it, because it might be more valuable than you think. And remember, some coins hide in plain sight. And the 1951 Wheat penny could be one of them. Stop. Don't scroll. Don't skip this. Because that 1943 Wheat penny you might have could be hiding serious money, and most people will never notice it. Most people see a penny from 1943 and think it's just another old coin. They throw it in jars, piggy banks, drawers, completely ignoring it. But here's the secret. Not all 1943 pennies are the same. That tiny D under the date tells a story that could completely change the value of your coin. This coin was minted in Denver, in the middle of one of the most unusual years in U.S. history. 1943, World War II. Copper was needed for the war effort, so most pennies were made of steel. But some mistakes happened during production, and that's where the real value hides. Now pay close attention, because most people fail at this point. They glance at a coin, assume it's worthless, and move on. But valuable coins don't reveal themselves easily. You have to look closer. Start with the mint mark. That D could make a huge difference. Some pennies from Denver in 1943 are far rarer than you think. Next, the surface. Tilt it under light. Does it still shine? Or is it dull and gray? That shine isn't just cosmetic, it's called luster. Coins that still have it are extremely rare. Then look at the color. Steel pennies are usually dull gray. But sometimes, due to mistakes in the mint, a coin may have traces of copper or unusual tones. That's a subtle hint, and hints like this are what collectors hunt for. Now here's where it gets really interesting errors. Some 1943 D pennies have double die errors. Look at the letters carefully. Do they appear slightly duplicated? Not scratches, but real doubling? That could be huge. Off-center strikes are another key feature. If the design isn't perfectly aligned, most people see it as damage. But collectors see rarity. The more off-center, the more valuable. Then there's the clipped planchet. That's when a small piece of the coin is missing, like a bite taken out of the edge. Not wear, not damage, a minting flaw. Die cracks. Tiny raised lines from cracks in the minting dies. Almost invisible, but each one is unique. A coin like that can become highly collectible. Now imagine this, you're sorting coins. You pick up a 1943 D Wheat penny. At first glance, it looks normal. But then you notice something. A shine that hasn't faded. Letters that seem slightly doubled. A tiny edge flaw. Suddenly, this isn't just a penny. It's a rare coin. A collector's item. Something people spend years hunting for. Some of the most valuable 1943 D pennies were found in jars, drawers, and old collections. Ordinary people discovered them because they simply looked carefully. Not experts, not professionals, just someone paying attention. This means your penny could be hiding in plain sight. Here's what to do. Check every old penny you find. Look at the mint mark. Examine the surface. Look for errors. Check for doubling, off-center strikes, unusual tones, or clipped edges. Because that small detail could make the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth hundreds or even thousands. Remember, never clean your coin. Original condition is everything. Collectors want untouched coins, not ones polished or scrubbed. Before spending any penny, pause. Look at it. Examine it. It might not be ordinary. It could be a rare 1943 D Wheat penny. And once you start checking, you'll start seeing potential everywhere. Coins are no longer just money. They're history. They're potential value. They're opportunity. Some of the most valuable coins were discovered by ordinary people who paid attention. That could be you. So stop rushing. Check your coins carefully. Look for small differences, subtle errors, sharp details, and original luster. Because the 1943 D Wheat penny might just be hiding in plain sight. And if you keep paying attention, who knows what you could discover next?